Everyone, we are very, this is a special occasion, not just for the topic of early printed Bibles, but especially because of the presenters who are here only for a week from the States to take part in our joint endeavor with the University of Virginia to do a rare book school course on the transmission of the Bible. And they have been victims of this course for like a week as we went through the transmission of the Bible from the Torah scrolls in Hebrew and all the manuscripts, and our final sessions on Friday are all about printed Bibles. So we just covered printed Bibles, and they kindly and bravely agreed to do a presentation of 4 iconic products of printing the Bible. And we put them in a chronological order, and we have 4 items and 4 students to present them. So we will start with the earliest and go in a chronological order, and we will have the first presentation about the earliest item.
Okay. Well, this is actually not the earliest volume. It's actually the latest one because it's a facsimile of the Bible. In fact, not only is it a facsimile, I take it, a very, very recent facsimile of the Bodleians, one of the Bodleians' copies of the Gutenberg Bible. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. This is 1455. You'll notice the Latin kind of Gothic meant to look like script, right? Meant to look like it was handwritten. Gutenberg's trying to participate in a culture of people who read the Bible in that framework. So he's not trying to invent something radically new. He's trying to do it cheaper and better, but produce something that looks like what it's supposed to look like. Obviously, holdovers of the manuscript tradition, including illuminated capitals and decorations throughout the text. Hold on, if someone wants to just touch the mouse pad of that laptop over there. Not only, obviously, Gutenberg has a big legacy, but in the history of fine art and modern art printing, especially of the Bible, you'll see homages to this mix of script, manuscript culture, and printing. This is the Doves Press Bible, 1903 to 1905, printed in a fine arts press in England. And you can see the large capital I there in the beginning. This is, of course, the Vulgate. That's, of course, the King James Version of the Bible, but you'll see this kind of homage to Gutenberg and the use of that I as a way of signaling a kind of a maintenance of the craft and art part of, nevertheless, a mechanical process. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. What we have here is a 15th century product, specifically. So this is the Glossa Ordinaria, which follows in a tradition that developed in France. And the idea is that the teacher, the master, the professor would offer explanations about the gospel text, and students would write in between the lines of the gospel. So we have a couple of things going on here. To show specifically first the gospel, we start here with Matthew. The larger text here is the gospel text itself, and the smaller print is the interpretation. And it's interpreting some of the harder concepts, and when the Bibles were printed, at this point, the interpretation or the understanding of it became somewhat standardized, and that's reflected in these printed Bibles. But there are some really, and on the sides here, you have a commentary that provide, again, biblical commentary. Let me go over here. This is a really good example where it shows the commentary running along the sides, the main biblical text, and the interlinear notes. If we start, though, at the beginning, it exemplifies one of the major victories, if you will, of the prominence of Jerome, St. Jerome, in the tradition of Bible production. So you have his letter here to Pope Damasus. That becomes rather standard, if you will, even in the manuscripts, so the handwritten Bibles before the 15th century. And not only do you have that, you also have a note from Jerome about, there's different Gospels out there that have been written, many attempts to write these Gospels, and that's rather standard in some of these Bibles. And finally, before you get to the Gospel, you have one further explanation from Jerome, if you will, that explains the Gospel of Matthew, or the life of Matthew, before it finally launches into it. So in some ways shows remarkable continuity that's been happening for centuries now in how Bibles were laid out, and also shows a variety, especially again with this glossa ordinaria that developed in France in the 15th century. So this Bible in particular was published in 1481, but the original was 1476, and this is one of 5 such books to represent the entirety of the Bible. This just covers the Gospels. Thank you.
All right, good morning. I will point out that my Bible preserves much of what Lloyd just talked about, the Pope Damasus letter, the Jerome, but Peter asked me if I would focus on the Gospels here because, as you can see, this is a 1511 Italian edition of the Bible. It is printed, but it has also some woodcut illustrations, which are beautiful if you come see them. Of course, we've seen some beautiful manuscripts, so it's interesting to see what has been painted and very brightly colored now in these wood block prints. And over here are what we call the Eusebian tables, the canon tables. This is one thing Peter wants us to take from this class. One of the things Peter wants us to take from this class. And I had this lovely moment when I was trying to think about what I was going to say, where I realized that this is the first and only time that the printers took the time to lay this out in type and put it in the tables. It compares the 4 Gospels here. So like this is Jesus teaching in the temple and where it happens in each Gospel. And then it compares 3, it goes to comparing 2, and then there's always 10, and the 10th is usually the exceptions, like this only appears in this Gospel. And so really, I just realized that this is the first and only time it was printed, which Richard could tell you probably why they didn't bother doing that anymore. And earlier this week, I volunteered. That's kind of what I do with my thing. I volunteered to lift the Codex Sinaiticus, which was very heavy. The facsimile. The preservation book's not the original. I lifted the facsimile. It's very heavy, but that is where the first printing, or the first time they were written out, was in that book, right? Yeah, okay, I remember. So that's a lovely little bookend, is that I hefted that earlier this week. And now I'm presenting the 1511 printing, and after that, they sort of fell out of fashion. You won't see that in your modern Bible. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. We have had an absolutely fantastic week here at the Bodleian. So thank you for, oh my goodness, there are a lot of you. Okay, so I have been asked to present on a 1517 printing of a Polyglot Bible, narrowly missed being the first in print, ended up being the second because they figured they wanted to get it finished before going to putting it on the shelves. In matters of life eternal, I don't know how much it matters, whether you were first or not. So as you can see on a typical spread, we have Jerome's Vulgate translation at the center. We have the Hebrew that has been translated on my right, so your left, or on the outside part of the leaf. And then on the inside, we have a Greek translation with interlinear translations into Latin. Apparently, I'm gonna skip the stuff that's down here. Apparently, the Cardinal Cisneros, who oversaw the research and the creation of the Bible, likened this central column to Christ on the cross, and the 2 columns to the side to the 2 thieves, which kind of demotes these 2 considerably. I would note, though, that in addition to chapter headings, the Vulgate text offers a reference mark for pretty much every single word in the passage. And those reference marks go back to the Hebrew. So though Christ may have risen above the 2 lowly thieves, Christ's body is still utterly dependent word by word for its meaning on one of its sources. At the back here, just thinking about the book itself as a body, we have a register. This is a common practice in the incunabula period, kind of fell out of use.
but it's persisted here. And this is the list of gatherings that the printer passes on to the binder, so the binder knows what order to put the gatherings in before sewing and binding. And it's a fairly typical use of the 23-letter Latin alphabet, and because it's a big fat book, it has to double up and go to double A's all the way to the back. One thing bibliographers like to do is to compare what you see in the register to the notices in the direction line at the bottom of the page to see where you are in the signature. This one in particular is signed, there we go. So this would be the first in the gathering, double P.
Q.
Is it Q? Thank you. I'm upside down and turned around. And Q2, Q3, Q4. What I expect now is 4 unsigned leaves. There's 5. There's 6.
No, it's
look at that. Yes,
it says all
I'm with you.
ternios except for the last, which is a quarto. It said in the
Yes. So I expect there to be 8, but in fact there are only 6, and the term for that is that it's been oversigned. The 4th leaf doesn't actually need to have been signed, but oversigning is fairly common. This would have been a monster to set, and a monster as well to compile. It does not have catchwords at the bottom, which are a typical aid to the printer and binder as well, to make sure things stay in order. So the oversigning may have been like an extra little protection to try and keep things in order. I did not find any signing errors in my quick survey of the text, but interestingly, the register tells us that the last gathering is not in 6s, so 3 nested bifolia, but only 2. Interestingly though, we have A1, A2. We expect A3 and A4. However, this looks more like binders end papers than it does like part of the text block. So if we had more time, if I had had more time, one had more time with the manuscript, one would actually try and confirm whether this was part of the text block, in which case no leaves are missing, or they were part of the binding afterwards, in which case 2 leaves have been excised from the end. A couple ways you would look for that. One would be to look for the watermark. If the watermark never saw use until like the 18th century, then you would know that it's a later edition, not part of the text block, and 2 leaves, probably blank, but 2 leaves have been removed. Another way to do it is to look at the edge and see what leaves are cognate with each other. Do they actually join each other in the back and the spine? Initial survey suggests to me there's a lot of gluing going on in here, and I think it's probably more likely that these are end papers added later, in which case, again, as I say, leaves have been excised. Same thing happens at the beginning. Title page, never signed, Maltese cross 3, 2, you'd expect this to be 1, but again, it looks more like an end paper than it does like part of the text block. So that's a mystery not a difficult mystery, but one to be explored further at someone's leisure. That's probably my time. Thank you.
All I can say to finish it off is a great thank you to all of you who did an excellent job, and it looks like that Miss Tran is meaningful. Thank you very much and for your attention. Thank you.